Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or the Try-F podcast, where we try not to F the podcast up. Tonight, we are talking about the socio-sexual hierarchy, and we're going to be probably categorizing ourselves. I have my own thoughts on all of this. I think it's one big sliding scale. But this is a very interesting video by Mr. Vox Day, who I have mad respect for. So definitely look into him more if you find this information compelling. Gary, how are you tonight?
I'm fantastic. I'm glad I don't have to do any more reviews of House of David. That's burned out.
No doubt.
So,
Trevor, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So we're ready?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're ready. Let's get into it.
Socio-sexual hierarchy. All right, here we go.
How high are you?
Welcome to Voxiversity. I'm Vox Day, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the socio-sexual hierarchy. That may sound complicated, and that may sound new to you, but this is something that you know intimately. It's something with which you've been familiar.
Am I going to
since you were
learn
in
my
school.
pronouns?
It's something that you have around
No.
you at all times, in every organization, in every company, in every social group in which you participate. The social sexual hierarchy is how men and boys relate to one another. What you are, how you behave, and what your natural inclinations are likely to be. There are 5 ranks, and they've been developed from the concept that was originally introduced by the pickup artists. The early pickup artists,
Why was Alpha's
Royce,
butt backwards?
Roosh,
I don't know.
often talked about alphas and betas. Alphas
dancing,
were men
probably.
who were sexually
And where's Sigma in this list? Sigma's the only one I know. Is there no Sigma in this list?
I don't know. I guess not.
Oh, what the Sigma?
What this? My kid says that all the time. We still don't know what it means.
I don't know either.
successful, men who women were attracted to, men who found it easy to attract women.
Gross.
Betas, in their parlance, were men who were not attracted to women. The socio-sexual hierarchy should not be confused with this, even though it sounds similar and even though we use some of the similar terms. Because the socio-sexual hierarchy brings in
I'm sorry, can I just say he picked terrible music for this? Because now I'm just thinking Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and this guy looks a lot like Dennis if he shaved his head. I'm just pointing that out. It's like, no, it's about, the inference. It's the implication. It's like, you don't get that episode. It's great. He's threatening to rape women so he can get dates. That's what it is. R-word women. That's what it is.
Yeah.
in social
This is a creeper
dominance,
video. That's my point.
social hierarchy. It's not all about male-female relations. It's just as much about male-male relations, the internal concepts that tend to govern an individual man's behavior. So there are 5 major ranks: alpha, beta, delta,
Somebody needs to fix Alpha's butt.
gamma, and omega. The top of the hierarchy is the alpha, the quarterback on the football team that the head
That
cheerleader
ain't
dates,
me.
the blonde bad guy in every 1980s teen flick. He is the guy that the girls want to be with and the guys want to be like. So what separates the alpha
I never wanted
from
to
other
be the
men
quarterback.
beyond his attractiveness to women is that he is a leader. He is someone that other men naturally want to follow. What he does, they imitate. When the group is making decisions, his opinion counts for more than others. So there is a natural leader-follower relationship between the alpha male and other men. But this is both a responsibility as well as a right. The alpha tends to be much more cognizant of status than other men. He tends to be protective of his status, and he tends to be friendly to those who acknowledge his status, and he tends to react badly to those he perceives challenges it. With the alpha, as with
My mom called that being a spoiled child.
No, there's a scale.
There's a scale. Okay. So
And
if
your
you're-
mom
if you're
doesn't
a
want
if you're a
your mom
grown
doesn't
man,
want you to be an alpha. I mean, come on.
So if you're a grown man, this makes you an alpha. If you're 2, it means you're going to get a spanking. I think I understand.
Well, the point is that you get a spanking and you don't care. That's your remaining
Oh,
alpha.
okay. So daddy can beat the snot out of me. I don't care. I'm going
And
to
then you
smoke
don't
the pack
care,
of
yeah.
cigarettes. Okay, got it.
All
It's
these ranks, positives and negatives, pluses and minuses. It's important to understand when you're thinking about the hierarchy that it's not about trying to maximize your position within it at all times.
I wasn't about to get into a fucking big dick competition.
Sometimes it is a big dick competition.
If you're not naturally suited for
That just sounded gay to me.
Well, maybe you don't fare so well in big dick competitions, Gary.
Yeah, because that involves that involves homosexuality. But anyway.
No.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I'll take it
your rank,
serious
you're
now. I
probably
promise.
not going to be very good at handling the responsibilities if you're put into a role that requires it. So the second rank is beta. The alpha are the leaders. The betas are the lieutenants. The betas tend to resemble the alphas on the outside, but the difference is they lack the ambition
how he's
and they
showing Tom
lack
Cruise as a
the
beta.
status consciousness.
I think he's a little bitter at Tom Cruise, huh? It's like a little 5'6" alpha. I hate that guy. He still has all his hair.
Beta.
that the alpha has to have. The beta is almost always going to be found attached to an alpha. The beta likes to be provided with leadership. He likes to be provided with a vision. In some ways, being a beta is arguably the best of the social ranks because it comes with a lot of the privileges of being higher in the social hierarchy
No. There's 2 O's in goose.
without all of the responsibilities that fall to the alphas. This is why in corporations you often see such a problem when a alpha leader retires because they frequently try to elevate his loyal betas to the former alpha's position, which almost invariably fails because the beta is not psychologically suited to play the same role as the alpha that he supports. Betas actually tend to be fairly friendly people that it's enjoyable to be around. They're popular with women. They're very popular with women,
Hey, Goose, you big stud!
That's me, honey.
but not to the extent of the alphas.
You always go home with the hot women.
All right, thank you, Carol.
In general, you're not going to see a wife fretting about the loyalty of her high status beta husband the way that she is almost invariably going to worry about her alpha husband.
Take me to bed or lose me forever.
Show me the way home, honey.
Betas tend to be very loyal. Loyalty is their defining trait. The thing that you
I'm finding this slightly hedonistic. I'm just throwing that out there.
need to be very careful
Because of the movie?
with the beta.
Well, it's got a very Darwinian presupposition to it, don't you think?
Maybe just because we're categorizing people, so it feels that way.
Well, it's like, yeah, I'm getting like pride of lions. I feel like he should be out there, like, you know, talking about lions in the savannah or something. It's kind of a,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, it's general and it's a behavior pattern thing. It's not like, oh, this person is this forever for their whole life. It's like, I think it changes. But
What do you think, Trevor? You're awfully quiet.
I was an alpha once, but I didn't like it.
Was it because of the homosexuality?
Which one?
I'm getting the vibes that there's only one way to prove that you're the alpha,
Oh my.
and it involves questionable decisions and possibly a penicillin shot.
One area where you can get yourself in a lot of trouble
purple
is
shot.
if you are disloyal either to them
Well, I just happened to see a MiG-28. Sorry, Goose. We.
or even worse, to the alpha to whom the beta looks. They're not only his lieutenants, they tend to be the alpha's enforcers as well. And so when you are in a group, the kind of people who will take you aside and let you know that maybe you want to adjust your behavior a little bit, those are almost always going to be the betas. The third and most common group is the deltas. I chose the name delta to apply to them because they are the most liable to move up or down the hierarchy depending on where the group is. Remember, these hierarchies are fractal. Someone who is a alpha in a very small group might only be a delta in a larger group of which that little group is a subset. You know the phenomenon. Big fish in a small pond is not a big fish in a big lake, much less the ocean. Deltas are the backbone of society. Deltas are the most important part of the hierarchy. They tend to define the success of the group. They tend to define the smooth functioning of the group. The more that a group or organization caters to its deltas, the stronger it's going to be. These are the guys who get the work done. Deltas tend to pride themselves, and their defining characteristic is competence. They don't want to lead. They're not necessarily concerned with making sure that the will of the alpha is properly followed. They want to do their job. They want to be respected for doing their job. And what they crave more than anything is respect. Now, unfortunately for society, women are not particularly attracted to deltas. Deltas tend to be the average guy. And of course, as we know, due to hypergamy, women tend to be less than entirely satisfied with average guys. One of the biggest achievements of Western civilization has been the institution of monogamy, preventing the alphas, and to a lesser extent the betas, from hogging all the desirable women. Monogamy, one man, one woman, one husband, one wife, is an excellent way of ensuring that deltas are able to marry and raise families. And this is absolutely critical for the sustainability of a stable society. The harder it is for productive, reliable deltas to engage in successful relationships with women, the more unstable the society is going to be. This is why polygamous societies are intrinsically less stable than monogamous ones, because unhappy deltas are not working away competently at building the infrastructure of society. Now, the fourth rank is in many ways the most intriguing and troublesome one, and this is the gamma. The gammas tend to be more intelligent than the norm, more sensitive. They tend to be more introspective. Now, this all sounds positive, and there are definitely positive traits to the gamma.
You got a problem, friend?
But the problem with the gamma is that the gamma is fundamentally unsatisfied with his position in the social hierarchy. Gammas often believe that they should be in charge by virtue of their intelligence. And this, of course, tends to make them extremely disruptive forces in any organization of which they're a part. So whenever you see someone causing trouble in an organization, whenever you see SJWs infesting it and attempting to force change on a healthy organization, you can be pretty sure that the men involved are going to be gammas. Now, there's a lot of different attributes that we could discuss, and I will do a video focusing entirely on the gamma.
Why didn't he give the guy a top hat and a vaudevillian mustache?
Which guy?
Yeah, well, the gamma. I mean, look at that. That's a little spot on. It's a little white hat, black hat, don't you think? It's like, yes, I'm Horton Smedley. I'm going to take all the women. So it's a little on point there, buddy.
Yeah.
And the other ranks in the future. But the most important thing to understand is that the chief characteristic of the gamma is his dishonesty.
That month, I didn't sleep for 25 days.
Oh, he thinks Jordan Peterson's dishonest. That's what's going on.
Did you hear what Jordan Peterson said there?
Something about not sleeping for 25 days.
I didn't sleep for 25 days.
I'm sure he's being slightly hyperbolic, but okay.
Didn't sleep at all. I didn't sleep at all for 25 days.
The gamma is dishonest with himself. The gamma is dishonest with others. And even worse, When he is called out for his dishonesty, he will usually defend himself like a cornered rat.
How is that possible? That
I'll
should
tell you
you
how it's possible. You lay in bed, frozen in something approximating terror for 8 hours, and then you get up.
Rather than simply admit that he was being dishonest. And so what that means is because of that characteristic dishonesty, the gamma also tends to be conflict avoidant and passive aggressive.
I was being professional.
He replayed weak, conflict averse.
So there is a natural rivalry and a natural dislike between alphas and gammas. When you are running an organization, or when you're responsible for an organization, the gammas are always the ones that you need to manage very closely because they are the most likely to behave in a disruptive manner, and they're also the most likely to simply melt down and cause problems of an unpredictable nature. Gammas tend to be disliked by women, whereas women are more or less indifferent towards deltas. They actually tend to be somewhat repulsed by gammas.
Answer me one question.
Yes, you're a total fag.
This is very frustrating to the gammas because they actually tend to be the romantic ones.
10 things I love about him.
So this is what I'm getting. In society, the women want all the alphas, but the alphas are homosexual. And the gammas want all the women, but the women don't want any of the gammas.
Yes.
That's ironically just.
They tend to be the ones who will obsess over a particular woman and write her poems and fail to understand that the strength of his desire for her does not cause her to desire him in any way. You know, introspective is one word for the gamma. Narcissistic might be another one. However, for all their challenges, gammas are still part of the social hierarchy. Gammas usually do find a woman with whom they can have a successful relationship in the end. The fifth rank is the most tragic and difficult rank. It's the omega. And the omega is the quintessential social reject.
Excuse me?
The omega is the one
Excuse me?
who is not even in the game where women are concerned.
Did you see my stapler? That's the last straw.
Yeah, whereas
That's the
the
last straw.
gamma
He's gonna
might
burn
be
this
the
thing to
one
the ground.
muttering in his beer to his friend in the corner at the party. Nobody ever even thought of inviting the omega. The omega is literally never there. And omegas tend to creep women out. Just the mere fact of them being around, even if they don't say anything, is often upsetting to women. They're not necessarily incompetent. They're merely socially handicapped, usually in multiple ways. Omegas can be the classic school shooters. If you look at Adam Lanza of Sandy Hook fame, he would be an obvious example of the omega type. Omegas tend to keep to themselves. They don't tend to have many male friends. They don't tend to have any female relationships at all. You know, most of them live quiet lives, keeping mostly to themselves, although, as was shown in the movie Office Space, they do occasionally snap. When you hear about the quiet guy who never bothered anyone, who suddenly flips out and burns his company building to the ground, you can be highly confident that you're dealing with an omega. Now, why do these things matter? You know, why do we talk about these ranks? You know, is it to make the alphas feel good about themselves? Is it to make the omegas feel bad about themselves? No, not at all. The reason that the social sexual hierarchy matters is because the patterns of human behavior it identifies allows us to recognize, understand, and anticipate the behavior of other individuals once we have successfully identified their rank in the hierarchy. Not only that, but you can use the hierarchy to avoid
Somebody
obvious
fix that poor
problems
man's
in
butt.
your organization or your group. For example, if you happen to hire a young, attractive female intern, do not assign her to an alpha, especially not if it's a married alpha, because the chances are very, very high that they're going to have an affair. By the same token, you probably don't want to assign a gamma to manage a group of people, especially a mixed group of people, because gammas tend to view power as a chance to make up for all their junior high and high school frustrations. They tend to look at power as a way of getting back at people. And you can see this in practically any of the pieces that have been written by male journalists about the confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh, being an athlete from an elite prep school, represents the much hated jock alpha to the gammas of the press. And you can see and read their psychological issues coming out on the page as they attack this guy that they've never met, who's done nothing to them. It's not all ideological. A lot of it is psychological, and a lot of it is rooted in these socio-sexual hierarchical issues. The more that you develop the ability to identify the traits of your own socio-sexual rank, the easier it is to modify your own behavior and optimize your own behavior. It's especially useful when you're dealing with others. I make use of my knowledge of the socio-sexual hierarchy on a regular basis in my business relationships. I know that I need to be careful about inadvertently challenging an alpha. I know that I need to make sure not to say anything disrespectful about an organization for which a beta is working. I also know that when I'm dealing with deltas, I need to make sure that I give them the respect for their competence and their hard work that they need. And with the gammas, I always make sure to not put them in mission critical positions just in case they have a gamma meltdown and elect to declare war on the organization. These patterns of behavior are very, very reliable. They are very, very recognizable. And once you begin to see them, it's very, very difficult to ignore them. I think that if you study the groups in which you are a member and you learn to start identifying who's the alpha, who's the beta, who are the deltas, who are the gammas, what you're going to find is that you're going to be able to navigate the social challenges presented by that group in a much more effective manner. This is Voxiversity. I'm Vox Day.
Bet.
All right.
Vox crushes.
I love you, but I'm putting this in the fiction category of fiction and folklore.
What?
I don't buy this framing.
Tell me where you disagree.
No, I do think there are alphas and different things like that, but one thing he didn't address is how stagnant those roles are. Whether they,
What do you mean?
Well, you can have somebody who's a jock in high school, an alpha in high school, then they become a gamma later on or something like that because they've lived past their glory days or something of that sort. If they peak in high school or whatever. Yeah, people move up and down that. There wasn't a lot of discussion about people moving up and down based on different points in their lives. So age might be another thing to factor in when you're talking about stuff like that. And I don't know. I prefer to look at masculinity more rooted in character. But for the sake of argument, I guess we need to categorize ourselves, don't we? Wasn't that what you're wanting to do? All right,
sure.
How about you start? What would you consider yourself, Cody?
I would say right now, I'm not going to call myself an alpha, clearly. I'm going to say delta. I'm going to say delta.
All right, Mr. Trevor.
I kind of run by my own. I have my own internal decision maker, so I'm not trying to please anybody. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Tell me what you think.
Whether I think you're an alpha or not?
Any of them.
This is why I call it fiction, though, because it depends. One thing he did point out that was valid is it depends on the group you're with. See, people regret. There's a thing in psychology called regression. Like in different in different family dynamics, people change their roles.
Yeah.
Sure. And so they're not consistent. It depends on what environment you're in.
Okay.
And so I haven't seen you at work, so I don't know if you're an alpha at work.
Gotcha.
Well,
I work by myself, so I guess.
There you go. Oh, you're what was it? Omega. Oh, you're gonna have a breakdown. Or whatever. Yeah. Watch out for you.
No doubt.
Trevor, what are you?
Is there an all of the above selection?
There you go.
There you go. All right.
Because it does change like on the daily. Like I can relate to pretty much all of those at the same time.
If I had to pick a categorization, I'd be like half alpha, half delta, half gamma. Because I take extreme pride and competence in my work, but I have a real contempt for authority. So
yeah, that's based.
That's kind of where I'm at.
We're biased.
And so
I feel like I was super gamma for a long time, and I'm glad I made it through that phase of my life.
No, that's why I thought I was Sigma, because it's kind of like the lone wolf who kind of tries to be hyper competent and doesn't really, like I don't have any interest in being a alpha, like at all.
I don't either.
Like, so you guys can be competitive if you want. I mean, if I tried to compete with you, I'd probably lose, but there's probably just lack of motivation as much as anything. So anyway.
I kind of see this whole thing like a sliding scale, like I was saying, like alpha doesn't seek, I'm going to oversimplify the shit out of this. Alpha does not seek feminine approval, and the more feminine you seek going down that scale, like gamma seeks the most female approval, but it's all like dishonest, right? Like that's where the gamma kind of flips,
like in what way?
It becomes like a dishonest, like a people pleaser.
Okay.
Right?
Well,
it's not honest.
So he's lying about
people around you.
So is he the type that like
you want to fluff everybody's feathers?
Well, see, this thing is, are you talking about like somebody who lies about their accomplishments or something like that?
Yeah, you could say that.
Because alphas will do the same thing.
The lie doesn't matter.
Because alphas will do the same thing, though. They'll
fair.
lie. Yeah, like I know a particular quote-unquote alpha fella. He over-exaggerated his accomplishments all the time. It's part of his charm. So...
Do you think the difference is that lies... Is he lying to further his to try to roll, or is he trying like because like the gamma's to get sex, or
You're breaking up every so often, so you might need to get closer to your mic.
Okay, the gammas try to like every time they lie, they want to get something from someone. Whether it be sex or like fluffing their feathers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like this is why it's so subjective, because an alpha would do the same thing. I mean, you don't lie just definitionally unless you want something from somebody. So.
Well, an alpha could be just maintain his.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm losing you quite a bit. Can you Yeah, I don't know what's going on. You might have to pull a Trevor and hold the mic up to your face for a sec, unless it's maybe an internet connection thing.
Checking.
Just your connection, Gary, because just fine.
Is it my connection?
I can't.
Well, my Ethernet's still connected. Yeah. While we're looking at that, or while I check the connection, how about you guys go back and forth for a minute, and I'll see if I can't figure out whether or not it's on my end.
All right. Does this help?
It doesn't. I really, like I said, I
right.
For some small.
I mean, behaviors within each category. Try to work behaviors and like up to the next.
Yeah. Like
I see the gamma tendency. We can go over it. We got another video about just gammas, but like gammas, they're always trying to like or decision makers. They're always seeking approval in fear of conflict. They want to make people happy. Conflict with them.
Right. I avoid conflict, but so
right. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know your inner monologue.
Sometimes I don't even have one. Most of the time.
That's good thinking.
Blank page. Like it. No. And I'm like, up the track. That's 20. It's like, oh yeah, I was going.
What a man. Yeah.
You know, I've had situations, you know, where people come and ask me, hey, and I'll be like, we'll do this right after that. For me, I'll go out. Brother, he's higher up in the chain, you will. And question myself.
See, and I've heard people call it, instead of beta, there's Bravo. I mean, the Maverick and Goose idea.
I think that's
like,
I think that's the one with the signal on it.
Yeah, it could be. What are you doing, Gary?
Oh, that's awesome with the live stream.
Is it? I'm clicking around. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully that'll make it better.
Yeah, the live stream didn't like that, but it did clear up.
That's what I thought. It's a CPU issue on my end because our internet connection's good. So basically, Photoshop was fighting with all the other programs and throwing a fit because I forgot to turn Photoshop off.
Nice.
Yeah, that cleared up quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, because Adobe is a terrible, terrible program. So if you decide to become a video editor, free advice, avoid Adobe like the plague, unless you want to be like me, study it for 2 years, and then feel obligated to the trashy program. Because you spent
TikTok right there.
Yeah. Yeah, just do something else, anything else. Avoid Adobe like the plague. It's a terrible company.
I saw, speaking of this, I saw the greatest meme earlier and I saved it, so you need to see it. Can you see this?
Kinda. Let's see.
Can't read it.
Your computer, free antivirus, free antivirus software.
Free my booty.
Can't we say McAfee? But anyway.
Yeah.
Anywho.
We'll start.
That's something for future notice. CPU can actually screw up the live stream. Who knew, huh? So anyway.
Who knew?
Yeah, no, I just have, it's the framing. It's not that I don't think there are certain personality types that are like that. It's the framing of it.
Yeah.
That kind of bothers me. People are just not stagnant, and people's levels of discipline are different as well, because people will have those impulses and then not do them, which is why it's really stupid to judge somebody based on a personality type, because, you know, if they have a higher level of discipline, let's say, as opposed to a lower level of discipline, they might not listen to those impulses. So, you know, I tend to just, like, when I was directing, which is probably the closest thing to like a real leadership thing that I have, and you know, I did it for money. I got paid to do it, so it's not like I'm a complete novice, at least once anyway. But anyhow, so you know, you basically, when I was looking at how to position people, I was always just kind of watching what they did with each other, like when they were on stage, how they would talk. And the main thing that I was always concerned about was I was just looking for the complainers. I wasn't looking for alpha and gamma and, you know, all these guys. If somebody had a propensity for complaining, I would just isolate them. I would because to be blunt, and this is why, another reason why I don't like this categorization thing is, in my experience, the complainers are the alphas. It's the type A guys because they always think they can do it better. and they're charismatic enough to get a following, and they'll completely hijack, whether it's a group project, whether it's a play, it doesn't really matter. If you let an alpha who's not in leadership get in there and start whining about people, they'll run roughshod over the whole thing. Yeah. And I've almost had a show completely collapse and not make it to the performance state because I had somebody who was a bad actor, just go in there and just poison the entire cast. And I had to find that person. And usually what I did to deal with them is I gave them a task. Like I gave them their own wheelhouse. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, you're doing such a wonderful job. I'm going to put you in the props department because only you can handle the props. Kind of technically I was lying. That's complete bullcrap. The dude was whining and getting everybody mad. So I wanted to get him away from everybody. Yeah, but they're charming enough to actually win people over. Which is why I didn't like the gamma personality thing, because it's like alphas are generally known for being charming, but gammas are generally known for not being charming if you're going to go by this generalization categorization.
No, the gammas are about people pleasing.
Yeah, but usually they're perceived as like sniveling and kind of like
What do you
Well, look at the picture the guy Vox used. I mean, look at that picture. That's not an alpha.
What's the Pilgrim's
That's not a
Progress?
charming
The
fella.
guy that talks people up.
I haven't read the Pilgrim's Progress actually.
God. Hey, speaking of Gary, that's his front butt, not.
Huh?
His front butt.
His front
butt.
You mean it's his loins?
You're ridiculous.
Oh. Well, TTNDJMC says. Hang on a second. Let me read. We got a comment here. TTNDJMC says, true generalizing isn't always efficient. I agree. You do have to look at individuals.
Right. Is it cool if we just call you DJ?
That'll work.
So, I think the gamma thing is the tendency is like, as far as his being nice to people and people liking him, it's all subversive, and it's like flattery.
These guys were not subversive. The people I'm talking about were never subversive.
You just said they were poisoning the well.
Yes, they were poisoning the well in public, openly. They were talking to people going, I can't believe this, such and such. And usually what they would do is they would get 2 or 3 people to agree with them, and then they'd scare the crap out of everybody else into agreeing with them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider that subversion myself. I would consider that pretty open.
I guess I used the wrong word. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just I always called them type A's because they're just aggressive. That's kind of the way I thought of them.
I don't think they were real type A's though. I don't know.
Well, that's probably not the technical term, but I think A is in aggressive is kind of what was running through my head.
I know like 5 alpha males.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not many.
I mean, I've met quite a few alpha males. I mean, in my time, but
yeah.
But look, there's some people that are alphas that, fight it and still play ball, and they can, guys that are disciplined will really be in your corner. I mean, just because somebody's a personality type doesn't mean they're always going to behave that way. And that's kind of the problem with this kind of categorization. I never use this framing to position people in like a cast, be it behind the scenes or in front of people. Like I never did this. And to me, it was always find the negativity, isolate the negativity, and try to foster a good culture in your cast, which is really important because when you're doing like community theater, which is what I was doing, these people are there for free. They have to want to be there, and so your job is to make sure those people are enjoying themselves, because if they're not, they'll just leave. You don't have money tying them there, and so you've got to pay really close attention to the culture of your group, and I guess there could be an alpha or a gamma equivalent that's like negative, and you need to do the same thing as you would an alpha, though. And that is isolate them, give them their own little wheelhouse to occupy their time, and make sure they're not complaining to the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
And you got to catch them early, because that was the mistake I made in Curious Descent, was I waited too long to catch those people, and they got a good majority of the cast really mad. just over stupid stuff, and it was because I wasn't paying attention. And it turned into this giant dramatic meeting, and it was one of the bigger mistakes I made when I was doing theater stuff. So I learned. I learned you got to find those guys quick and get them their own job. But I always liked, when it comes to masculinity, I always liked the way the founders looked at it. It was always about self-discipline, mastering your own domain. Like,
not looking for outside approval, right?
Well, being very proficient. Yeah. Like if you've got a house, it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to be the interior designer of it. Like, because knowing how everything matches and how everything looks and presentation is part of, mastering your domain. If you're going to be a farmer, you're going to be the best farmer that there is. You're going to study soil and how to get the pH right and all this and that. Like, everything was about proficiency and character. And if you were, in your 30s running around with women and playing sports, you were a kid. You weren't one of these personality types. You were a man-child, because you had no self-control. That was the way that they looked at it. And so I always liked linking masculinity with character more than anything.
Man-child.
That was creepy.
My cat won't stop.
Made me sad to hear that.
Can you hear her?
Do you think an alpha would have a cat? Maybe a Bond villain. Or is a Bond villain a gamma or an omega?
Bond villains are gammas.
Ah.
They're omega gammas.
I mean, I guess you could have an omega. Like Gru.
There you go, yeah.
I would say he's an omega.
Yeah.
But he got turned, into an alpha. He's got 3 girls crushing it.
There you go. There you go. Gru's an alpha. So on that note, we're moving on to episode 3. All right, so this concludes episode 2. Guys, Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.